Politically speaking, the entire United States of America, with Washington, D.C. at the forefront, has declared war on the new Free Republic of Florida. I have made the allegation before that Florida has already de facto divorced itself from the rest of the country. Well, we are seeing this now play out in politics all across the country, all the way across the spectrum. Some might say, Florida Maquis, I think you're overstating the case. That seems a bit drastic. Well, what if I told you that Sarah Palin, representing the MAGA right or the Trump right, the Washington Examiner, representing the non-Trump right or the National Republicans, and MSNBC are now all working in collusion to carry the water for a 2024 Trump nomination? Now, the MAGA right thinks they can win. This group of people just wants to make sure that Ron DeSantis doesn't get nominated. And this group of people, of course, the left, they hate anything conservative. Now, do I have proof for this? Wait until you hear what this guy said. It's going to absolutely blow your mind. But first, as always, I want to say thank you to everyone who has continued to join us over the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. We just put up a brand new video that exposed the connection between what happened in Flint, Michigan, and why, the water crisis, and what happened with the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. Some might say, Florida Maquis, those are almost a decade apart, and they're two different, they're connected. If you'd like to see the connection, join us over at Patreon. It's only $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable first 90 days. We can partner with Vimeo, take the gloves off, and keep the content off of Google accessible servers so that we don't have to worry about advertisers or making anyone mad. Now, some might say, Florida Maquis, why is psychological operation so important? And haven't you heard of places like Rumble and BitChute and all these other places where you can go where it would be free, where you can speak your mind? Well, it's not true. Number one, it's absolutely not true. The issue with being a Patreon is that when you create a paywall, even a tiniest one, like I said, if it could be a quarter, I would make it a quarter a month. You see, bots and fake accounts can't get over that paywall. There are sophisticated computer programs out there and manipulators, single individuals, that create dozens of accounts and hundreds of bots. So even at Rumble and BitChute, when you think, oh, wow, what a great discussion this is. Look at everybody agreeing with this topic. It's one or two people. They put up a video, and then every comment you see below it is the result of a bot or the result of a fake account. And they'll throw up hundreds of comments that all agree with what is being said. And you'll think, wow, look at all these views. Look at how popular this topic is, when it's one or two people. You see, we don't have that at Patreon. Because it's easy when it's free, isn't it? You see, there's no bots that are allowed to have bank accounts. It's a manipulated thing, all that BitChute and Rumble and Telegram and Parler and all that kind of stuff. It's all manipulated. Anything where there's not a paywall is manipulated. If you want to see actual, real human beings having real discussion, join us. Like I said, the minimum I can charge would be $1. If it could be a dime, I'd charge a dime. Just to keep the bots out. Now, real quick, there are groups of people working together, colluding for different reasons to make sure that 2024 sees a Trump nomination. The left wants it because they know they can win. They know it will divide the Republican Party. The National Republicans just don't want DeSantis for sure. They all hate DeSantis is the point. They all hate DeSantis, and they're all terrified of the idea of Floridian culture coming to the forefront. Sarah Palin has counseled Ron DeSantis should wait. He's too young. She didn't want to seem too negative. And the Washington Examiner, which is supposed to be a conservative outlet has put him on the cover as some kind of double-chinned lizard wearing flip-flops. I mean, they portray him as horrible. You would think if anybody would look at what happened in Florida the last 3 years and be behind it, it would be the Washington Examiner, but apparently not. And this here, I tell you what, the most truth I have ever heard out of MSDNC or MSNBC, sorry. Now, what this man is being accused of saying is actually incorrect. This guy, his name is Jason Johnson. I want you to read what he actually says, because it is absolutely correct. In my view, this is his quote: "There are 3 states that you can't really run from if you're trying to win across America. You can't run from New York because you'll be seen as too crazy, you're too much of a liberal. You can't run from California, once again, too crazy, too liberal, trying to make sure I can't get plastic straws. You run from Florida, and it's all crystal meth and alligators, right? I mean, that's what people think." Now pay attention here. He says, and I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying those are sort of the national reputations of the states. So when you see Ron DeSantis running and claiming that he's going to do for America what he's done in Florida, it seems like that would be a problem, as if the whole alligators and crystal meth thing is a result of Ron DeSantis, or just a bunch of crystal meth addicts decided to vote for Ron DeSantis. That this huge Republican wave, this huge conservative wave that happened in Florida, is a threat to DC, because it's a different kind of conservative. It's a thoughtful kind of conservative that understands when you have true liberty and when you have true freedom, sometimes it's messy. Sometimes things get a little ugly. And it'll give a lot of people an opportunity to point fingers and laugh. You know, we talked about the issue in the villages, with the key parties and people and the old folks out, doing crazy stuff, and then everybody has seen the pictures, the Florida man pictures of this and that and the other happening. Well, this is what freedom and liberty is all about. It used to be what this entire country was about. Because sometimes if you're living in a place where nothing strange happens and everything is orderly all the time, and there's no crazy folk out doing what crazy folks do, you might live in tyranny. You might be living in tyranny. And I'll say it again. I mean, who remembers, I think it was Sesame Street or the Electric Company or one of those kid shows way long time ago, and they would put the little screen up and it was divided into 4. And it would show 3 people doing one thing and 1 person doing something totally different. And they had the little song, one of these things is doing its own thing. One of these things is not the same. When you look at 2020 and the reaction to 2020 and how it was handled, there was Florida and there was everybody else. And there were a couple others trying to be Florida, trying to mimic a little bit, but there was nothing like what happened down here. Hence the millions and millions and millions of people, not thousands, not tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, millions of people that have moved to Florida in the last 3 to 4 years and that are continuing to come. You see, this is a problem. This is a problem for a lot of people. Now, I'd like to ask my audience a question. And it's based on a story that I told on this channel a long time ago. I know we're 9 minutes in and everybody's already bored. You may or may not agree with this, and this is fine. But it goes right along with it. Some of you might remember the story I told about this event that happened in my life many years ago. I'll try to make it quick. I had a friend, they lived right next door. They were having some financial difficulties. And so him and I got together. We went to church together and decided to do something that would fix the financial problem and also allow them to keep their privacy. Wouldn't have to go ask anybody publicly for money. It wouldn't be revealed. And it would still allow them to, maintain some kind of a lifestyle. What happened was basically this. I sold my lawnmower, and they sold their freezer and their washer and dryer. We took all of the money, gave it to them. They solved their financial problem. Now, in return for doing this, he had a lawnmower. He mowed my lawn. And since they no longer had a washer, dryer, and freezer, they would come over. They put their freezer stuff in my freezer because it was way bigger than what I needed, me being Signal. And they would do, or she would do, the laundry at my place since it was just a walk right across the lawn. Now, one night, she threw in a load of laundry, left in the dryer, forgot about it, fell asleep, came back the next morning, and she scampered across the yard wearing, well, what you would wear to bed, basically, and went in the side door of the garage, got the laundry, came back out. Some busybody ladies from the church saw her coming and going, wearing, what you wear to bed, basically, and put two and two together and thought she and I were having some kind of an affair that her husband didn't know about. He was already gone to work. And so there was this problem, and even though we were trying to do something nice and good and right, this whole idea of the perception of impropriety all came up, and it caused all sorts of issues. So what made me think of this versus what's happening now with Florida is it's a perception issue. You see, even in the South, other Southerners prior to 2020 didn't really look at Florida as part of the South. And those of you who are down here know what I'm talking about. Those of you up in Appalachia, in Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, didn't really see Florida as part of the patriotic South or the conservative South, that it was, way too loose morally, way too liberal, too many things went on down here that weren't right. And it reminds me of this. It really does, this perception thing, where here in Florida, we're trying to do the right thing, trying to do the good thing, do the thing that allowed for the most liberty, which is what our founding fathers talked about. And all of this buttoned up nonsense coming out of, the Bible Belt, so to speak. Well, you shouldn't behave that way. You shouldn't behave the other. Well, maybe we should or we shouldn't, but it's up to us. It's not up to you, and it's not up to government to judge that, is it? Well, this was the same thing that happened. I see the rest of the South, the northern part of the South, as the churchies that have been judging Florida so long. The same thing that judged, him and I. Now, my reaction to what happened probably could have been better, because when I was accused, I reacted poorly and suggested that perhaps the preacher's wife should go engage in some particular form of self-care, since clearly he couldn't do it for her, being the preacher, and apparently using the PA system at the church was not the appropriate venue to do so. So, of course, we didn't go back. But point being, since nothing wrong happened other than the gossip, but, the idea of, giving people ammunition to gossip was something that Billy Graham tried to get ahead of. It said, number 2, we will avoid any situation that would even have the appearance of compromise or suspicion of sexual immorality regardless. That means members of his ministry, they couldn't be, if there was a married woman and she was by herself and she was in an elevator and there was a single man, he would send her up alone. He would never be seen alone, would never sit at a table, have lunch or have coffee with a woman that wasn't his wife, wasn't married, just for the appearance of. Just for the appearance of things. And, and it reminded me of one other thing too. Some of you folks in my audience might remember the debate way back, 92. Who remembers when Ross Perot, when he was talking about Bill Clinton, said, look, we need somebody who understands the jobs of the future. Bill Clinton is a good man. This is what Ross Perot said. He's a good man. He's governor of Arkansas. The biggest industry in Arkansas at that time was chicken farming. And he said, now don't misunderstand me. Chicken farming is good work. It is honest work. It is decent work and moral work. But chicken farming is not the jobs of the future. And what he was basically talking about is trying to stop NAFTA. He's like, if you allow this progressivism to happen, you're going to see jobs leave this country. I think it was a giant sucking sound of jobs leaving this country and heading overseas. This North American Free Trade Agreement, he was dead on right. I mean, if you look back at what Perot said would happen, the man got 20 million votes. His last third-party candidate that really made a threat, he got 20 million votes in an election that only had 100 million people voting. But he was absolutely correct about this. But once again, people tried to, say that he was trying to demean Bill Clinton. It was perception. Perception is reality. And that's what's really going on right now. If you want to look at this and see, it's like, wow, Sarah Palin, on behalf of Donald Trump, is encouraging Ron DeSantis to not run. And most of the country thinks Florida's a bunch of meth addicts and idiots and crazies. And then the Washington Examiner makes Ron DeSantis look like some kind of lounge lizard with a double chin. And Trump himself has come out and said, called him, a traitor and all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, the liberals themselves, say that he's trying to take books off the shelves and trying to take us back to, the 50s. It's ridiculous. But it's all perceptions. But make no mistake, this war is going to get ramped up. This war is going to get ramped up. And if you can't see it, people in Florida see it. People in Florida see it for sure. We're one place, and everything north of Tallahassee is another. Truly speaking, we are one place, and the values of what's going on, I mean, there's a few pockets here and there that might agree more with Florida than where they're at, but it's getting fewer and fewer. So I'll leave it there, but I'll ask you the question. I mean, let me see if I can find it here. Was there a better solution? I mean, someone said, well, why didn't you just give them the money? It's like, well, they didn't want that. They didn't want just a handout. They wanted a solution to the problem. And with him mowing my lawn, and occasionally she would do my laundry because, the washer dryer was in my garage, and I would leave stuff down there and she would be nice enough to, run it through and fold it and all this. They didn't feel like it was just, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't feel like it was handout, like it was a handout, like they were, like it was charity. They didn't want it to feel like, that they were some kind of a sad sack. They wanted an opportunity to fix it, but in a way that allowed them to keep, some semblance of pride. So, but this is what happens when other people get involved and appearances start to reign supreme. And this is what I'm seeing right now in this country. The appearances of Florida are incredibly wrong. And in this particular case, the appearances in my personal life of what was going on were completely wrong. It's for me personally, it's a very interesting thing to see. And, thinking back to what Ross Perot said, the appearances then of what he was interpreted as having said were also completely wrong, and he was totally right. So I'll leave it there. But God bless. Have a great week. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.